Hello and welcome everyone to our Exposing Social Emotional Learning monthly live webinar. I'm Diane Stover and I'll be moderating this webinar that will be recorded and available on the Parents on the Level website and the Protect Ohio Children YouTube channel for those who want to watch it later. Last month, our speaker and expert on social emotional learning, Marcia Metzger, spoke about second step SEL curriculum. If you missed it, you can go back and watch it. It's a great introduction to learning about SEL. It also gives background about Marcia. During today's webinar, I'll be watching for your questions through the Q&A icon at the bottom of the screen. And as time allows, we'll take a few questions. At the end of this webinar, there will be a survey you can use to give feedback. So at this time, let me turn this over to Marcia Metzger, President of Parents on the Level.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm so glad that you have tuned in to join us today. Again, I'm just overwhelmed with the response we got from the first webinar, and I'm really grateful for those of you that have reached out to encourage this work. We are excited about just helping parents, families, schools, and kids. So what I want to do is kind of graphics and logos and all of these things mean a lot in the education system in this world right now. And so I want to just kind of take a moment to start explaining SEL from the lens of CASEL. Now, CASEL, some of you may be familiar with it, and a few of you may have even seen a presentation that I've done similar to what I'm going to do today, but we wanted to get this particular seminar recorded in this series because we want this to be a one-stop place for everyone to come and learn about where SEL comes from, how it's graded or scored, and also just the background of this company called CASEL. Does this company have integrity? Is this company something that you would consider putting the attitudes, values, behaviors, and beliefs of your child before and have them lead them in those areas of their life? These are questions that we have to ask. So anyway, let's look first of all at this graphic. We're looking down a blurred school hall because right now the school system to us looks blurry. It does, it looks blurry because we don't know exactly what's happening in the new world of technology with our students. But then we also look at the fact that you hear these words, and these are CASEL's words. You know, they use the word lens of equity or a lens of equality or whatever, but it's mainly equity. And what I want you to understand with this particular seminar, I am going to juxtapose or compare and contrast the difference between your family worldview and the worldview of CASEL, the promoter and the foundational instigator, pretty much, or the impetus behind what social and emotional learning is today. CASEL stands for the Collaborative of Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. So before I turn the page and get into some of these other graphics that I use, I just want to get you to look at this particular pair of spectacles. Okay, so when you're looking at it, you're looking at a real bright orange circle on the left there, and on the right, you're looking at CASEL's logo. Okay, so Parents on the Level, that's our logo there, but that's inside of the right spectacle lens. Okay, and the CASEL one actually is inside of the left spectacle lens. We can't avoid the elephant in the room. A lot of this is right versus left, conservative versus progressive. Just point blank. I'm going to let you know that and disclose. So the thing is, if you have, and it doesn't, the thing is, your family worldview, you may have a family worldview that doesn't agree with CASEL or with the left or anything like that, but that is yours and it's on the right and it's rightfully yours. You as a parent have the right as well to direct the upcoming of your child's education. And right now, our schools are making a spectacle of what's taking place. And there's no doubt you can understand that that's what's taking place. Now, I will reveal to you, if for those that have not have not seen the first episode of our social and emotional learning exposés, that I have spent many years in ministries for children. I am a Christian, I'm a pastor's wife, and I just fully let you know my worldview is the most important thing to me of all. So you can understand that's where I'm coming from. And that is absolutely, as a citizen of the United States, that is also the rights that parents have. They can stand and say, hey, wait, my worldview is this, and this is coming in on my worldview. So we're going to talk a lot about worldview in the upcoming days and months. So let's just get started on that. Now, this is a part 1 of the CASEL doctrine. And as you notice, doctrine, that is a belief system. It can be, it's ideological. So we're going to show you how that works and how that's come about. All right, so let's take it, your family worldview. Okay, here is your family worldview rolling down the hall on your child's backpack. They're walking down the hall of the schools, and they have a worldview, and you've instilled it in them. In that worldview, you may even have what you would consider sacred beliefs regarding who created you, or sacred beliefs regarding your religious texts that you use. No matter if it's the Bible, no matter if it's any kind of religious text you use, whatever your religion is, your worldview is your worldview. So anyway, your sacred beliefs are right there, and they're going to come up against other things in the school. But with this, what if they were manipulated and changed without you knowing it? Because many times what's happening, especially as students are using laptops now, you don't understand what they're seeing on these laptops, and they don't even know that there's a problem with it to try to explain it to you, possibly. And teachers, many times, if they put them on assignments that are housed in these elaborate technical publishers, they have such elaborate systems now. Even sometimes the teachers will not fully know what's taken place in that lesson. All of these different things can change before the eyes of your child. CASEL is this company that is bringing a lot of different ways of thinking to your children. They are broadening their perspectives. And, some people think, well, isn't that a good thing, Marcia? Isn't it a good thing to have socially and emotionally healthy children? It all sounds really good, but to discern what's right and what's almost right, that's where you as a parent come into play. And as I give you this information to evaluate for yourself, that's the best thing you can do. And you can say, I did my due diligence to train my child and to make sure that what they were learning was what they need to learn, what's safe. So anyway, let's look at what CASEL comes from, what their original history is, because during the pandemic, I ended up researching CASEL like nobody's business. That's what I did during the pandemic, because I was told that social and emotional learning is what was being used in a local school to teach sex education. And I happened to be working as a person that taught abstinence education in the schools. So anyway, when I was told that this is what was being taught or used for sex ed, I knew by law that I had the right to see it, because we do open record research. So I applied for all of that. It was a big story, and you can learn that in my last in the last video. I think I covered a lot of that. But this is the thing. You need to know that CASEL, their original history, originally CASEL stood for the Collaborative to Advance Social and Emotional Learning, not the Collaborative of Academic Social and Emotional Learning. So really, in its origin, it really wasn't about academics, because this is the other part of it. This is what is on their history. Now, they have changed their website. You won't find this on there, but I have links to share with you, because I always bring the proof of what I speak of. And so this is on the Wayback Machine. If you've never used this internet archive called the Wayback Machine, it's not hard to use. You can go to waybackmachine.org and find information. But this is what was originally on their website as far as how they began and what they were about. It said CASEL, or the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning, emerged from a meeting, I think it was in 1994, hosted by the Fetzer Institute, okay? Meeting attendees included researchers, educators, and child advocates involved in various education-based efforts to promote positive development in children. These SEL pioneers came together to address a concern about ineffective school programming and a lack of coordination among programs at the school level. All right. Hang on just a second. So schools were being inundated with a slew of positive youth development programs, such as drug prevention, violence prevention, sex education, civic education, and moral education, to name a few. SEL was introduced as a framework that addresses the needs of young people and helps to align and coordinate school programs and programming. Okay, so some people would look at that and say, okay, so what? Well, the thing that you have to ask yourself is, where did this come from? Who are these people? What are their values and what are their morals? We are in a worldview situation. We are introducing ideology into the public school systems, which is something that has never really been, everyone has thought all these years that this was neutral and that these things weren't happening. Well, now we have it all in writing, and social emotional learning coupled with diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is so hot on Twitter right now and hot in the news right now. This is where it comes from, and this is how it's going to impact your children in the school system at this point. So social emotional learning absolutely delivers this information, and it does it through online publishers through and through. So now when you look back and you think to yourself, well, okay, so we have this the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning, hosted by the Fetzer Institute. Now, I don't know what you know about Fetzer Institute, but John Fetzer, he was very instrumental in promoting New Age, a lot of New Age elements into our society. He's just a big proponent of that. So here is what their goals were, pretty much. So I want you just to see what's taken place with this, because we're at a place right now where, again, we're looking totally at another, boy, my screen's going crazy. We're totally looking at another, just introduction of even a deeper ideology than just saying, well, we're going to teach them some morals at school. No, the Fetzer Institute, if this was dreamed up at the Fetzer Institute, you better believe that those morals or those beliefs are going to impact the school system, because it does. So their worldview centers around the sacredness of reality. See that here in the middle? Their mission is to help to build a spiritual foundation for a loving world. Now, I want you to really follow this part with me. Fetzer's worldview centers around the sacredness of reality, which includes the centrality of spirit, okay? Why they capitalize spirit here is interesting to me as a Christian. It makes me wonder, what spirit do you speak of? Okay. What spirit is this connecting to? So that's another thing. There's the integration of science and spirituality in their mission, and a sacredness of all people and the planet. So you've got inclusion, which is part of DEI. The planet, you could say that that's another ideology. Or some people, there are many, many, many people that do not believe what is being said about the planet and climate change and all of that too. So we are really taking this where a lot of parents don't even know this is taking place, and using this in our schools. And believe me, it's there, because you can see it in a lot of this digital programming. I've seen several things about climate change in Newsela and other applications that I've seen in the school system. So a lot of it is being traced. Now, this is the wheel that they use to absolutely just describe these competencies that they have, that they want children to learn. And they even want to be able to measure these, which we will learn in our second videos on CASEL, because I don't really want to get bogged down into the CASEL competencies and everything in this. I want to stay on what's taking place in comparison, because we're talking about the fact that the schools through SEL are introducing a doctrine, and they are introducing activism training for students using this doctrine. So let's keep going. But one thing, look at this, they have self-awareness. These are the 5 competencies that they promote: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, responsible decision-making, relationship skills. Sounds fabulous. Sounds fabulous. It really does. But then it says this is how it's going to filter out into the world. And this is a global effort. Believe me, this is in other countries. I'm reading about it on a global level. So CASEL, which is founded in Chicago, is impacting the entire globe with this social and emotional learning framework. So first off, though, it's saying that this will be taught in the classrooms and then the school. So they want to impact an entire culture of the school. It's a transformative culture that they want to use inside the entire school. So this is going to be integrated throughout the entire day using the tenets of social and emotional learning. Then it's going to, they're wanting to involve the families and caregivers. You will notice some of these things taking place in the schools where families are being invited into this, and they're being, they're discussing what social and emotional learning is. And then also they're wanting to impact it in the communities. Many people are reporting how this is being trained in their companies, how this diversity, equity, and inclusion is in companies. If you will look at the publishers' websites for your students, like you have Imagine Learning, Savvis Learning, Pearson and Savvis, they're about the same thing. There's so many. Houghton Mifflin, there's a lot of different publishers that you can look at. You can go on and you can see how they are connected to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how they're going to train and use these enforcement tools with the students throughout the schools and with the teachers. All right. You will also find verbiage, like I said, it is a global effort. They want to produce a global citizen for the greater good, okay? All of this information is building. So I'm just introducing you where it's coming from, who's involved with it, who is funding it, and that's where we're landing right now. Look at these names. These are the funders. You can find every bit on CASEL.org, C-A-S-E-L, CASEL.org, and you can find every bit of this information. What do these companies stand for? What are they promoting? What are their world goals? How are they connected with the World Economic Forum? All of this comes together. Okay, so look at these names. You've got Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, of course, are in everything. Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, you're looking at the Facebook people there. You're looking at Patrick J. McGovern, huge proponent of artificial intelligence. Novo Foundation would be more of your Warren Buffett. I mean, this goes on and on and on. Allstate Insurance, LG, the company. I mean, it's everywhere. Kellogg's, it's everywhere. Okay. All right. So those are some of the big money names that are promoting. And now I'm just going to share some of the names of people that are involved with CASEL. And again, we will develop all of this information. It might be a part 2 and 3, because CASEL, the foundational element, the foundational company that is grading and driving this in the schools, in the public schools today, and in private schools, and in homeschools even, because if you're taking any kind of money from the government, there's strings attached usually. So there's some of that taking place as well. But these are the people that are involved with CASEL as well. Now, Timothy Shriver and Daniel Goldman, they're at the very top of the company list. They do a lot. They're co-founders of it. Eunice Kennedy family. Timothy Shriver is Eunice Kennedy's son. Maria Shriver is married to, or was married, I don't know if they're still married, Arnold Schwarzenegger. You have a lot of connected people here. Eileen Rockefeller Grold, okay, David Rockefeller's daughter, she's heavily involved in this. She's on their committees, and she's on the committee that has done a lot of work in a global way for CASEL. Linda Darling Hammond, you'll notice I have her triple starred. Linda Darling Hammond has a big part of CASEL. She is board member emeritus. She is also the president of the Department of Education for California. Now, if you're the president of the Department of Education for California, you are pretty much embracing all of the ideologies from transgenderism, gender identity ideology, sexual orientation, all of that being taught to students at school. Inclusion is pretty much a huge part of what's taken place in California. I have friends that are fighting a lot of this in California. Laws are being written that's just riding right over the rights of parents. So there's a lot going on. Linda Darling Hammond also is connected with the Rand Corporation. She worked there for years and years. A lot of information has come through her in that respect. She was also a teacher at the Teachers College for in Columbia University. Lots of information that comes out of that university is connected to a lot of the radical training in schools today. So there's a lot of information that I can provide for you later along those lines. Dr. James P. Comer. Now, Dr. James P. Comer in the new website for CASEL has been described under their about section pretty much as like the father of social and emotional learning because of some work that he did on an emotional level with students in Connecticut. Okay. There's a whole nother story here, and he is a precious looking little granddaddy. He was educated while Alfred Kinsey was at Indiana University. Dr. Comer's bachelor degree actually is in zoology, and we know that Kinsey was connected with the zoology department. Do I have any connections where I know that he was absolutely affected by Kinsey? I don't, but during the time he was at school, Alfred Kinsey was known all over the globe for the books that he exposed on the sexuality of the human male and the human female. So there's a lot that connects with that concerns me. I'm still researching that. But he has given a lot of credit for social emotional learning and how it has been formed and how it operates today. Then we also have Stephen Rockefeller, which is Nelson Rockefeller's son. He also has a lot of speaking engagements with CASEL, and CASEL has speaking engagements with him. And he also has the website Spirituality in Education, where that is one of the next steps that they want to bring into the whole child education system, which is a completely separate that would be a completely separate webinar to get started with. But SEL is connected with Whole Child. It is connected with the Rockefellers as well, with spiritualityandeducation.org. So you can look that up. So this is all connected. It's all on the internet. Anybody that has any integrity that would research this would find the same things that I'm finding. If I'm finding them, anyone can find this. It's all out there to look at. So let's talk again about the doctrine of CASEL. So the CASEL doctrine, for me, their tagline is that they're the missing piece in education. You see all the puzzle pieces together. That was supposedly to bring a framework to all of the non-academic lessons that are being taught in the schools and to integrate them in with the academic lessons to make a whole child healthy and whole, and to really get the trust of the parents to take them down this road. But for us, as we're looking into this more and more, and we're seeing parents standing up at school board meetings talking about these lessons that are radically in opposition to what they train their child to become spiritually in their own homes, we find that it's more about the missing piece, P-E-A-C-E, than a missing piece that's going to be helpful. So this is what they're describing. CASEL is describing. This is their former president, Karen Nemi. This is how she described the definition of what SEL is. And if you go to someone in an education system right now, flat-footed, and ask them, what is SEL? And then you ask another administrator at that same school system, they'll give you two different answers. It's a fluid thing. But this is what they have defined it as. Social and emotional learning, or SEL, is an integral part of education and human development. SEL is the process through which all young people and adults acquire and apply knowledge, skills, and attitudes to develop healthy identities, manage emotions, and achieve personal and collective goals feel and show empathy for others, establish and maintain supportive relationships, and make responsible and caring decisions. Now, folks, for me, I get a red flag when I hear of someone trying to shape my child's identity. To me, that just crosses a line for me personally. And I know that that's what I've heard from several other parents as well when I teach these seminars, especially people that have very sacred religious beliefs. They do not want someone else, especially a school system, bringing identity lessons to their children. So this is where, we've got to compare. So when we look at doctrine, what is doctrine? Doctrine is the belief system that someone subscribes to. And normally a doctrinal statement is going to list out what is meant the most. So let's just compare a few things, and then I'm going to show you what I believe CASEL's doctrinal statement is. And it's not this one here. This is an eggshell that's just there, okay? And it's just something that they will tell you that social emotional learning is. But is it really? I mean, you've really got to look at this and compare it with what I'm about to show you. Okay, here's the comparison. Here's how I'm going to show you. You've heard of the CASEL doctrine with the T in it, where it's a stand your ground. This has to do with Second Amendment rights in America, and it's not like I'm sitting here. I'm not really opening up the subject of gun control and all that stuff, but I am opening up this subject for you. When you are manipulated, that it's not kind to bring your worldview forward to protect your child, you need to stand your ground on your worldview and know what you believe. There's a very popular pastor by the name of Vodi Bakum, and he says there's no 11th commandment that says thou shalt be kind. And it's not about being mean either. It's about standing your ground, saying, no, I believe in the holiness of God. I mean, I'm going to speak from a Christian worldview right now, and yours may be different, but I'm just going to speak from mine because in our society, we have autonomy. That is the law system to which we subscribe. So in my autonomy, I'm going to tell you that I don't hate you, but I'm going to tell you this. My beliefs have to do with holiness. And my beliefs, when you tell me that I am being hateful or unkind because I don't want my child to be taught with inclusion language, and inclusion language, what that would mean is, and I found this in South Georgia, I found this taught to fifth graders in Tift County, Georgia, where it was said that, they taught kids, instead of saying female, a person who can have, a person who can get pregnant. Or instead of saying a young man, they said a person with a penis. We don't want that kind of language used with our children because that's confusing them and it's separating them more. It's not uniting them. So standing your ground and being able to provide what you do believe and how that is overriding your religious beliefs and your fundamental rights on just raising your child the way you want them. This is where we're at today in our society. We have to stand on what we believe and be able to present that and let them know this is First Amendments. This is a violation of the First Amendment. So standing your ground is important. That's your family worldview, and that's okay. In America, that's how we live. Whereas with CASEL's worldview, it's surrender to inclusion. Inclusion would be to teach everything, do group work where we receive everyone, we affirm everyone. What are we calling all of the medical information for transgenders right now? We call it affirming care. No, as a Christian or as a lot of other people that believe other than Christianity, we believe that gender is sacred and it's immutable. It doesn't change. So that's a lot of where we're going. And you can get bogged down in this really quick. So let me just start comparing the different things.
Marcia,
Yes.
we have a two-part question that goes in line with what you just talked about. I'll read this to you. It occurs to me that if CASEL can indoctrinate and proselytize the unchristian ideas, we should be able to counter in the classroom with our ideas about sexuality, chastity, gender, theology of the body and dignity of the man and woman, the Holy Spirit, et cetera, et cetera. And the uniqueness of man and his responsibility to procreate and use the resources of this planet for man's needs. Let's fight with fire. And then the same person is asking, can you list book publishers that subscribe to CASEL, please? I'd like to know if they're in my Catholic school.
I tell you what, as far as listing all of them, it's a huge list. The easiest thing that you can do is message us. You can send me an email, parentsonthelevel@gmail.com, and I will be glad to let you know. But also, CASEL has on their website, we can post a link to that as well. And if you want to get into the Parent Navigator, which is a book that I've written, I have completely reduced this book because I need people to read what's in it to help children. It's not about making money on it. You can go to the parentnavigator.net, and I have information listed in there where CASEL is grading different publishers, and they will tell you what kind of rating they've given them, and if they're doing the total transformation of a school district down to if they're just, accepting somewhat of their doctrinal information. So if you email me though, just I'll be glad to look into it with you. But the parentnavigator.net, I have a lot of this information where you can find everything. Okay. All right. So anyway, let's continue comparing these because I really want to get this in, and then we'll do questions at the end. I'm going to burn right through this. Just looking at both sides of the spectrum, family worldview versus CASEL's worldview. Again, we've got stand your ground versus surrender to inclusion. Our identity as Christians, I know, is found in Imago Dei, which is the image of God. That's what it means in Latin. Whereas with CASEL, your identity is manipulated in global DEI. And isn't it interesting? It's spelled the same way as God in Latin. I'm just going to leave it right there for you. You have creation versus evolution, diverse realities versus divisive concepts, equal liberties versus equitable control, because in order to bring all these equities in, someone has to control them. So now in the schools, we're going to have DEI officers, Title IX officers, along with your school resource officer, and there's probably going to be more officers. So there you go. We have gifted or trained students, whether or opposed to guilted or shamed. If you're going to call merit-based rewards privilege because you got up on time in the morning and got to school, there's so much that goes on with this. If you have parents in the house or you don't have parents in the house, and this world isn't fair, but to guilt and shame those that do and that are performing and that are learning, that's a lot of what I've seen. I've seen videos of this and everything. Now, if you look in the family worldview, a child is valued, whereas with CASEL's worldview, the system is what's valued. Here's the second page. You're looking at, with the family worldview, we're looking at the individual. And whereas with CASEL, we're looking at the collective. We're looking again at the system and the collective. We unite and we're law abiding. We have CASEL teaching students to dismantle, which represents lawlessness. We have moral absolutes versus moral relativism. Abstinence or waiting for marriage. Do you know that right now, a lot of the LGBTQ numbers are impacted because when a kid puts on a sheet that they just aren't interested in having sex yet or whatever, they will label them as asexual instead of abstinent, or they'll say they're questioning. We learn about emotions, but we live based in reality and we use facts. Whereas with this, we are learning emotionally, manipulatively on feelings. I feel like this today. I'm going to identify as this today. We believe in American citizenship. We believe in nations, whereas CASEL is promoting global citizenship, one world government. So now this is their pledge. I found this on their website, and I will have all of these links in the full report that we will put on the website later on. Parentsonthelevel.com is my website where you'll find this, and you'll find it under the tab SEL Exposed. Parentsonthelevel.com, SEL Exposed. So here's their pledge. I pledge to contribute to a caring, just, and thriving world by prioritizing social and emotional learning for myself and others. I will examine my own emotions, identities, beliefs, and biases to understand how they impact the way I interact with others. I will create spaces for others to explore their emotions, strengths, and assets, and how they can be channeled to serve the collective well-being. Channeled. I will listen to young people, elders, and those who are different from me. I will work to build meaningful relationships so that I can better understand others' perspectives, experiences, cultures, and stories. I will create inclusive environments where everyone feels a sense of belonging and where young people find purpose and passion. I will work alongside others to identify and dismantle inequities, stand up to injustice, and use our collective voice and power to create spaces where everyone thrives. I will use my power, my privilege, my time, my work, my influence, my lived experience, my love, my passion, my energy, and my resolve. Because when we commit to social and emotional learning, we can build stronger schools and community days and a more just and caring world tomorrow. I can show you a video of that with both of the NEA, the National Education Association president, and the American Federation of Teachers, Randy Weingartner, her and Miss Pringle of the NEA, both reciting this as well. This is where the American school system has gone. This is what they are committed to. This is a global outreach. And when you look at this, don't you just want your kids dismantling inequities? This is activism. When I've looked in some of these publishers' lessons, at the end of each chapter, they have it lined up. It says, call to action. Call to action. This is activism being taught in the schools on purpose. It's intentional. And honestly, your school superintendents, they should be ashamed that they are promoting this and that they are not safeguarding our children in these schools. This is an overreach beyond anything I would have ever imagined as I raised my children in the school years ago. So I know you want to ask questions about that. I'm almost finished and we're going to open it up for questions. So get them ready. So here's the thing. You need to learn that by CASEL taking this into a mental health zone, also into a spiritual, into spirituality, into a doctrinal statement such as that. I mean, that was their pledge, and that to me is a doctrinal statement when you go back through it. But then to ask your question, the children questions on this computer, and then collect all the data about what they believe, how they feel about things. This is like their Facebook, where they can collect everything about them, because Lord knows they've collected it about us for years. We all have these accounts with it. And so these are two of the different sites that I found, and there's many of these sites. Project Unicorn is, of course, Bill Gates's, probably one of his big projects. And the Common Education Data Standards, these are two websites that are just filled up with information from children across America. The promotion and the ideas and all the experiences that your child has and what's being told them, that their school is their safe place and their family, and that they are a global citizen. When they're being taught these things, this is how they're coming up. This is what's shaping their hearts and minds. So now let's look at the next screen, and I want you to see what I'm talking about here. So your child is sitting here at this keyboard typing away, and they're asking things like, I saw a question asked on one, who are you romantically attracted to? What business does a school have to know who a child's romantically attracted to? Now, that was in probably a middle high school one, but still, that's none of the school's business. Whatever they're asking these students, that what they're harvesting are adverse childhood experiences. That's what ACEs stands for, adverse childhood experiences. So they're taking this emotional baggage of this child, or of this child's, say this child doesn't have emotional baggage, say this child is very confident, has been raised in a way that they feel very secure, and they're very smart. They're collecting on that too, what kind of leadership skills does this kid have? I mean, whatever they're using it for their own purposes. Remember the collective purpose. So then what they do is this global interoperability is something that takes all of these computer programs in these schools and opens them up into global interoperability to where they're online in the cloud and they're accessible to only God knows who. I've seen companies sued for millions. I think Pearson had a case against them where they were sued for millions because a lot of their information got taken out, and they do some of the major assessing throughout the states. There's a lot going on with these companies and what's at risk on what's known about your child. So data collecting produces outcomes. Data is gold to these people because they can look at the future and decide what's going to earn money, what's not. There's no telling what they can do with data. When you know everything about people, how could you control them? What could be done? That's a question for you to answer because I don't have all the answers to it. I'm just letting you know how it connects. These are different things that I write about in the parent world, the parent navigator, that has to do with how the public school system is coming against the worldview of your family. And it's not just social emotional learning. There's a whole lot more that's involved with this, with what's going on in the American school system. The American school system is huge. They're also impacting the private schools with this information because all of the funding that came from the pandemic, there are strings attached to it, and we'll talk to you about that. And I'll give you other resources from people far smarter than me that have gone through and just done amazing work to show you where this all came from and how the progressive education has just taken such root in our country, and how this administration is going to manipulate it even more. And I believe in 2024, it's going to get more and more progressive. And so you'll see a lot more from all of this. So, all right. So, and here's how, this is a lot of the connections that I have. I'm at parentsonthelevel.com. Again, when you get this, when we put this on the website, it's parentsonthelevel.com. And then you will just go to the SEL tab and drop down on that, and you'll find the videos, and you will find also documents that I will be bringing to you to use in the future, where you can talk about this with groups to fight this locally. That's one of the things with my company, Parents on the Level. We're talking about the local level because laws are different in every state. And then you also have even different counties that operate differently. So you have to get this personalized at the level, on the level. So that's one of the things that we teach you about in this guide. So the parentnavigator.net is where you can find it. And also I have on Rumble, I have a channel there because I feel like YouTube would take them down, where I show you little excerpts and clips of things that I find in open record research, and to show you proof of what's taking place in the schools. So that's the presentation for today. And now let me take some of the questions that you have in the audience there, Miss Diane.
Okay. We have a couple comments. Some of these concepts go clear back to Obama's admin Common Core. If you compare some of the same ideology, Pearson and some of the other publishers were on board. And then another person said Gates, Google, benefited heavily from Common Core. And then another comment or question, please share where we can access a list of books in our schools listed by school. I know it was shared, but I cannot locate the information.
Okay, again, when you have different states, you have different laws. Like in Georgia, you can go to open.ga.gov, and I can pretty much look by county and find out what they've purchased. Some states don't have that. Some of you are going to have to do open record requests. But if you are a parent, you should be able to go into your school and you should be able to say, I want to see what all this school has purchased by way of digital curriculum. I want to know how SEL is purchased in this school. Is it done as a standalone lesson, or is it done on is it fully done throughout the day? And you see, this is where CASEL takes its grip, because their goal is to fully transform your school. But, and we're going to talk about this next month, on February 5th is when we're having our next webinar. That's 3 weeks from today. It depends on what kind of SEL program you have. Some of them are standalone, some of them are integrated. And see, this is where this gets so challenging to research, because schools have different by county it's different, by state it's different. So you have to do this in your local area, and we'll be happy to provide any kind of insight that we know about with your state. But the way you find out what's being done in your school is go down there and ask them face to face to start with, and just be kind, be nice as you do it. Just say, I'm trying to learn a lot about what's taking place, because I feel like my worldview could be impacted by some of the things that I'm seeing in our schools today. And I want to know for myself what's going on. And you can go through it that way. But even then, many of these administrators, they are taught to be very vague. So there's a lot to learn on how to look into it, but it's your child, protect them. All right, next question. You got lots of them.
Yeah, Marcia, this is just for me. You might want to just comment about how in today's world it's digital versus a book, that we're used to going to the school and asking to see. Just some comments. I'm sure you're going to cover that in a future webinar as well.
But yeah, that's so important. So, when you used to have a book, you could flip through it and that book is static, meaning it's there. It's right there. It's got an ISBN number. It's got an approval from your school board, the purchase of it. It's right there and it will never change. But today's world is this. And I mean, I even have, like, there's this one sex education publisher. She advertises this, that she can change it any time to make it better and better. So it's fluid. It's fluid. That is pretty much, or dynamic. These are the words that they use to help educate, or the words that they use to let you know that it can change at any time. Digital curriculum, it's risky. And honestly, laws need to be made to secure curriculum. It needs to be downloadable, secured, and firewalled from any publishers accessing them. And also, this data your children provides for these based on these lessons can have embeds in them, where they embed a link where they can go to another one. I have found where they were directing kids to go to Harvard University and fill out an implicit bias test. I've seen links where they send kids to learn about how to get contraceptives. And then that website led them to scarletine, which is, that's a lot. So this is why books versus digital curriculum matters. You've got to get involved and find out what's being taught in your child's school.
Okay, their technology for the Google Chromebook PCs can scan your child's face to see how they react to certain information and questions for testing. And then they're asking, can you re-show the CASEL versus CASEL slides? And then the next question, this is, they heard about Governor DeWine introduced SEL in Ohio in 2019. Are all public schools in Ohio required to use SEL? Are they using it? So Marcia, the question here, our audience is multiple states. They're really talking about, can a person opt out of this?
No, you can't opt out of it. Let me explain why. When you opt out of, or you think, say you opt your child out of sex education, that is a class that's going to be taught one day, right? So it's going to be one day. Say it was just taught out of a book, you opted them out. Nope, I'm going to teach that myself, right? That's what we've done in the past. That's been historically done in the past. So now, though, if SEL is integrated in all subjects, how could you opt your kid out of it? That is what they are trying to do. And when you learn from next month's lessons, I'm telling you, CASEL is so huge. I don't know if I could do it in 2 months' time, in 2 presentations. It might be a little bit more, and you might learn about a little bit more while I do a company at the same time too. So anyway, just pray for me that I'll have wisdom to know what to do on that part. But you cannot opt your child out of this. You just can't, not if they're in a public school system, and even in some private schools, because what's happened is they've taken ESSER funding, what's that, emergency secondary school, what's the rest of that? It was the COVID money, let's just put it that way. What they had to do with that money is reserve like 20% of it for learning loss. And one of you educators that are on here, you might have a better definition of what I just said. But anyway, what I'm saying is they have to purchase this kind of material because it's the therapeutic design to where they are going to help these poor kids that just missed out on so much because of COVID. That's basically what they use to get it in the door. So once you've got that once you've got that string is attached to that funding. So that's where they're going to go with that. Not to mention, it's not even just about that. That's how they got it seated and got it put in the schools. But this is a global effort to bring us into more of a one world global society. And it's just a fact. All right, next question.
Comment, Scholastic Book Fair markets many of these books.
Yep, they do. Oh, and here's the second screen on that, someone that wanted that earlier.
Our
Yes.
district has a link to each school library for parents to review the books for 60 days. It's a comment.
Hey, there are some good administrators that say, you know what? I'm going to be transparent with my parents and let them bring it, because when someone comes against me, I'll say, hey, this is my parents. This is a local level thing. And I would be glad to have an administrator that gives you those links. That's a good thing. Now, I will say this is one of the things that's happening with social and emotional learning programs as well as just other digital programs in the schools, is that they are using a lot of the books that the left is calling banned books. Folks, when books are banned, you can't even sell them. Okay, that's a banned book. We're asking for restrictions on books that have age inappropriate information, that have sexually enticing information in them, things like that. But what's going on now is you can find these, what they're calling as banned books, listed as assignments in some of these digital programs. Sure thing. So that's something you have to be aware of.
Pebble Go has ebooks. Got to look at the apps the kids use for their schools. Another person here stating that it's not required, SEL is not required in Ohio. And this person said they found that out. I would say to that comment, there are some programs like the suicide prevention, the violence, the inclusion that the General Assembly has mandated in Ohio, and I'm sure other states. They're using SEL programs, CASEL SEL programs in some of these programs. So yes, in some cases, it is mandatory, and often the local school district will decide and they'll bring it in. It may not be mandated at a state level to use a particular curriculum, but the local level will bring it in and it becomes part of the curriculum in that school district. So that's just some feedback.
So
Go ahead.
yeah, I've dealt with like when I was working with a lot of school districts in South Georgia, I've talked with several different people there, and there were some administrators that were just like, what do I do to keep this stuff at bay? You know, how do I deal with this? And so what many of them would do, or not, no, not many, a few would do, would be just to unplug it. If they wanted to teach lessons about how to live in this world or whatever, they would do it on very basic things and call it social emotional learning, but they would not let the companies collect the data. So, you know, there are administrations out there that are trying to combat it, and they find a lot of the times they find the least they say about it, the better off they are. But then you have some school districts that are all for it, and pretty much what you need to determine, you know, what kind of people are you dealing with in your school district, is if they are purchasing these companies and you're getting what I tell parents to do is for these digital programs is to ask for your own account to review these lessons. You would want to tell them you want the access codes. You want to be able to go through every lesson. Tell them don't give you the fancy little table of contents, scope and sequence document. That's not what you're after. You want access codes, full access codes, so you can go in and see the lessons for yourself. This is the best way that you can evaluate to see what's happening, not just what they want to do to your child, but here's the other thing about opting out of social emotional learning. Say you could, but say the majority of parents there think, oh, I want my child to be socially and emotionally healthy. And they don't realize that socially and emotionally means something different to these people than what you think it means, because we have language contamination in the schools pretty badly right now. So if you did opt your child out of social emotional learning, they told you, okay, we're going to opt your kid out. You can sign this document. The thing is, they are impacting the children around your child with these different things. And the idea is to transform the culture of the school. You'll see like taglines, a culture of excellence. You'll hear these things through the schools right now. They're everywhere, these things. So look for those things. But if it's going to impact your child, you saw that pledge that I just showed you. It's activism. So they're going to actively teach your child whether you're sitting in the lesson or not. Keep them coming. What's next?
If a parent does opt out of SEL and the school cannot inoculate from SEL, what will the school system do? Kick the student out or just violate the opt-out? I think we have some participants today that by the questions and comments that you see in the Q&A, you can tell that they want to fight. They want to fight fire with fire. And I saw that. And I think if you'll come back to the next webinar, some of those action-oriented techniques will be presented.
I'll tell you something, guys. When I fight this, there is nothing better than when I have gotten my access codes and I go in there and get my clips of the videos, or when if the school denies that, that's part of the story too. So however they respond, if they're not going to be transparent, you can say, well, you're hiding things, then I'm right. What I've learned is right. So, you know, there's going to come a place and a time where parents are going to say, you know, I'm going to start deciding to live a simpler life. I might have to have one car and one of us stay home and educate the kids. I don't know. But right now in America, you're going to have to evaluate how much does your worldview mean to you? That's just basically, that's the brass tacks there. That's the brass tacks of it. You've got to come to that place. Because right now the worldview in the schools, and the thing is, we thought for a long time that schools were neutral and that they were not teaching worldview. We were wrong. We were wrong. They were teaching it all along. And that's one of the reasons why you see in these Ivy League schools and everything. I mean, I've had parents come to me saying, I sent my child off to school and they came back and I hardly even know them now. So this is going on. So yeah, when you say you want to fight fire with fire, yeah, get the proof, but don't go in angry, just go in factually. Knowledge and the facts, knowing the law, read the education law in your state. When I went and I did that, that's how I got my access codes. I knew what my rights were. I knew what the law said. And I also knew what the violations, the ethics violations are as well. And I'll be honest with you, I'm at a point right now in this fight where when I'm finding things, I'm just going to go ahead and start filing ethics violations on these administrators, because that is the only way. If you threaten their job, this is the thing. Now, I feel sorry for a lot of educators and a lot of these administrators. I really do. And a lot of the teachers are not down for this. They're scared to death, but they need their job. Okay. And a lot of them are single parents too. There's a lot of single parents out there. But the thing is, when I go to these administrators and stuff, I kind of lost my train of thought right then because I was so ill about it. Where was I at? I mean, so sorry.
When you go to those administrators,
Well, when I talk with them about this stuff and I feel like they are just giving me a numbness of their mind, like they know deep down that they look like a deer in the headlights with you, okay? When you come and you expose this stuff to them. But then when they see that you have the law too, and you're talking about getting an attorney, and then they're saying, well, I can't do this, or this other group's going to come against me. Just say, well, you got to pick your poison here, because one of the other's going to win out. And why don't we win out with what's healthy for children and families, that like you're promoting here? That they're sitting here doing this under a color of kindness and under a color of law, and it's absolutely wrong. It is wrong what's being done to our families. So this right here, this is something you have. There's no easy way for this. You have to get into your local school and find this information out, find out what they're teaching, get access to it. But one of the reasons why we're doing what we're doing is we've already exposed a lot of stuff for second steps. If you've got second steps in your school, the work's done for you. In the future, we're looking at some other companies. We're going to expose them as well. We're just going to keep doing them one a month as we can. And, some of our months might be a partial expose on a company, but if we can just get a few things on the board and then say, you know what, say a few months down the road, come up and say, we found out some more. This is an update on this one. We'll provide updates on these webinars as well, updates to companies we've already done. But we've got to start collecting this information, because our students, our families are far too valuable, our country, because this is dividing the future. This is dividing the future of our country. And by removing the academics and just calling it SEL, you can tell academics aren't important to these people. It's not. So,
well, Marcia, we're going to call it a wrap for today on this one. And in the next episode, we'll continue, and that'll be on Monday, February 5th. I want to just remind everyone of Marcia's website is parentsonthelevel.com. Her Parent Navigator book, online book that has many resources, is parentnavigator.net. And again, join us on Monday, February 5th, and invite others who are concerned about what's being taught in the schools. We hope you can join us next time. Thank you so much. Thank you, Marcia. Great job.
thank you.
And everyone
I'll take
have a
care.
great day.